Ale was just a visitor on the alien world of Zelaria. He came from Earth, curious and always smiling. Most of the locals didn't like humans much, but Scylla was different. She was young, smart, and always full of jokes. She liked showing Ely around and laughing at how lost he looked. One afternoon, they walked through the quiet stone halls of her family's ancient shrine. It was a place most people feared to enter. The air felt heavy, and strange glowing vines grew on the walls. Eli looked around with wide eyes, touching carvings he didn't understand. "Your ancestors had cool taste," he joked. Scylla grinned, her eyes shining with mischief. "You want to see something really special?" she asked, without waiting for his answer. She led him down a dark hallway. At the end was a sealed chamber, lit by soft blue lights. In the center stood a tall armor statue, made of dark metal with strange glowing lines. "That's my ancestors' battle armor," she said, pretending to whisper like it was a big secret. "No one has worn it in 1,000 years. Eli whistled, impressed. "Looks heavy," he said, laughing. "But I'd fall flat on my face." Scylla smirked, her voice playful. "Try it on, human," she said, almost like a dare. Eli blinked, unsure. "What? Are you serious?" "Yeah," she said, chuckling. "Come on, make me laugh." Eli walked up to the armor, joking the whole way. He raised his hands toward the chest plate. Suddenly, the armor glowed bright blue. The room shook slightly, and a humming noise filled the air. Scylla's smile vanished. "That's not supposed to happen," she whispered. Before Eli could pull back, the armor opened like a flower. Pieces floated off the stand and moved toward him. "Wait, what's going on?" Eli said, eyes wide. The armor wrapped around him piece by piece. It fit perfectly, like it was made for him. When the final piece clicked into place, the floor lit up with ancient symbols. A loud pulse of energy pushed the dust away, and Eli froze, standing like a statue. "Eli?" Scylla called out, fear in her voice now. But Eli didn't answer. His eyes had turned glowing white, and strange symbols danced across his skin. He was seeing something only he could see. He saw visions of ancient battles, planets burning, giant warriors marching. A voice spoke in his mind, deep and powerful. "You have been chosen, bearer," it said. "Awaken the old ways, the time is near." Then everything went black. Eli collapsed to the ground. The armor still wrapped around his body. Scylla ran to him, shaking him. "Don't you dare die on me, human," she said, panic taking over. After a few long seconds, Eli's eyes opened again. But they weren't just his anymore. He looked around, confused. "What happened?" he said weakly. Scylla didn't know what to say. She looked at the armor glowing gently around him. "It chose you," she whispered, still in shock. "This armor never woke for anyone." Eli sat up slowly, his head spinning. "I didn't mean to do anything. I just touched it." Scylla helped him stand, still staring at him like he was a ghost. "This isn't a joke anymore," she said quietly. "I think you just woke up something really old and maybe really dangerous." As they stood in the chamber, the walls around them flickered, more symbols appeared, and a strange light filled the air. Eli felt something move inside the armor, like it was alive. It tightened around his chest, then loosened, like it was breathing. Scylla took a step back. "We need to leave," she said, her voice shaking. Eli looked at her, nervous. "Are we in trouble?" Scylla nodded slowly. "Yes," she said. "Big trouble," above them, hidden deep in space. An old satellite blinked awake. It sent a signal, quiet but strong. Far away, something dark responded. Something that had waited for centuries to hear that signal again, and it was coming. Asterisk. The stars above Zelaria shone quietly, but something had already changed. Eli sat by the fire, his hands still covered in glowing lines from the armor. The metal had melted back into his clothes, but it hadn't disappeared. He could feel it just beneath his skin, like it was waiting. Scylla kept glancing at him from across the small camp, her eyes full of worry and confusion. She was no longer laughing, no longer teasing. The joke had become real, and she didn't know what to do with that. "You look like you haven't slept," Eli said gently. Sayla didn't answer at first. She was watching the dark horizon, as if expecting something to come out of it. Finally she spoke. "The armor bonded with you." Eli frowned. "What does that mean?" She turned toward him, the firelight dancing across her face. "It means the armor chose you," she said. "And if it chose you, the ancient ones might rise again." He shook his head, confused. "I'm just a guy from Earth." "You're more than that now," she replied, her voice low. "The armor doesn't make mistakes." Suddenly, Eli felt something stir inside him. Not pain, not fear, but a pull. A voice again, quiet and deep. It wasn't speaking in words. Not exactly. It was showing him something, a map, a place hidden beneath the ground. His eyes unfocused, and he stood up slowly. "We have to go," he said. Sayla looked up. "Go where?" "I don't know," he said. "But the armor does." They walked through the dark forest in silence, guided by something neither of them fully understood. The trees grew thinner, and the ground turned to black stone. Finally they reached a cliffside, covered in strange markings only the armor could read. Eli reached out without thinking, and the stone wall opened with a soft hum. They stepped into a chamber lit by floating lights, untouched by time. The walls were covered in carvings of warriors and beasts, of stars and storms. In the center stood a stone table with a crystal floating above it. The armor inside Eli pulsed gently, like it was greeting something familiar. When Eli touched the crystal, his mind was pulled away. He stood in a different place now, though his body didn't move. A wide battlefield stretched before him. Armies clashed, giant machines roared, and in the sky, a dark creature with wings of flame screamed across the clouds. A figure turned to him, wearing the same armor he now held. "But older, more powerful. You are not one of us," the figure said. "And yet, the armor accepts you." Eli tried to speak, but the figure raised a hand. "Time is short," the voice continued. "The enemy returns, and only a bearer can stop them." "What enemy?" Eli asked. The vision flickered, and the figure whispered, "The Unmaker." Eli gasped as he returned to the chamber, his body shaking. Silo was at his side, holding his arm. "What did you see?" she asked, her voice urgent. "I saw a war," Eli said, "and something terrible." "Something coming." Sayla's face turned pale. Her people had legends about a creature like that, a force so powerful it destroyed whole star systems. They called it the Unmaker too, but no one believed it was real. Just then, the chamber shook. Dust fell from the ceiling, and a sharp sound echoed from above. They rushed outside and saw ships flying toward the shrine. Sayla's people, armed and angry. "They tracked us," she whispered. "They think you stole the armor." Eli looked down at his hands. "I didn't mean to start any of this," he said quietly. Sayla took his hand, her grip tight. "I know," she said, "but now you have to survive it." The ships landed, and warriors stepped out, their weapons raised. Silas stepped in front of Eli, blocking their path. "Stand down," one shouted. "That armor belongs to the bloodline." Sayla shook her head. "It chose him, not me," the leader sneered. "Then we'll take it from his corpse." Eli's heart raced. The armor stirred again, heat rising through his chest. Without thinking, his arm lifted, and a glowing shield appeared. The warriors fired, but the shield held strong. Sayla stared in shock. "That wasn't you, was it?" Eli's eyes glowed again, and a voice whispered in his mind, "You are not alone anymore." More warriors charged, but the armor responded faster than thought. Eli moved like a soldier trained for war, though he'd never fought before. Energy blasts, bright and hot, exploded in the air, but none touched him. He didn't know how, but he was winning. When the dust settled, the warriors were on the ground, defeated but alive. The leader crawled back, eyes wide with fear. "What are you?" he gasped. Eli stood tall, armor glowing like fire, and for the first time, he didn't feel like a visitor. He felt like something more, something dangerous, Something chosen. Behind him. Selah whispered just loud enough for him to hear. I think you just started a war. Smoke still hung in the air as Eli stood in the middle of the clearing. His breathing was heavy, but not from fear. It was from something deeper, like the armor was awake inside him, and it didn't want to sleep again. The warriors who came to take him lay on the ground, dazed but alive. Their weapons were shattered, and their eyes were wide with disbelief. Selah didn't say anything at first. She just stared at Eli like he was someone she didn't know anymore. The boy who tripped over roots and asked silly questions had vanished. Now something ancient wore his skin, and everyone around him could feel it. A sound came from above. More ships, more soldiers. Selah grabbed Eli's hand, her grip shaking. We can't stay here, she whispered. They'll keep coming until they destroy you or worse. Eli nodded, still unsure of what was happening to him, but the armor knew. It guided his steps like it remembered every path, every escape, every battle. He followed it as if he were only a passenger. Selah ran beside him through the woods. Neither of them looked back. They reached the canyon by nightfall. The sky burned orange with fire trails from incoming patrol ships. Eli dropped to one knee, trying to catch his breath. His hands trembled. As the armor receded into his skin once again, it left behind faint glowing lines. Like scars made of light, Selah crouched beside him, brushing dirt from his cheek. You didn't ask for this, she said softly. But that doesn't matter. Now, they won't stop chasing you. Eli looked at her, eyes tired but focused. Why are you helping me? She hesitated for a moment, then she looked away. Because the armor didn't just choose you, she said. It rejected all of us. That truth hit her harder than she let on. For years, her people had waited for the armor to awaken, each child trained in rituals, each warrior tested for worth. And none had been chosen, not even her. Then a human shows up, smiling like a fool, and it wraps itself around him like he was always meant to wear it. How could that be fair? How could that be destiny? But Selah wasn't angry anymore. She was afraid, not of Eli, but of what the armor was warning them about. While they rested under the cliff's shadow, a strange noise echoed from the canyon wall. It was like a voice, humming through stone. The armor inside Eli reacted again, pulling him toward it. Selah followed him down a narrow path until they reached a hidden opening. Inside was another chamber, but this one was broken. Walls had collapsed. Vines had swallowed half the room, and yet, in the center stood something untouched by time. A sphere, floating in the air, spinning slowly. As Eli stepped closer, the sphere opened like petals. A beam of light shot upward, showing a holographic figure, an alien woman in armor. Her face calm but serious. She looked directly at Eli and began to speak in a voice that echoed in his mind. If you hear this, then the armor has found its bearer. You are not of our kind, but the blood of stars runs through you. You must not return it. You must not remove it. For with you, it awakens, and without you, it dies. The image flickered, then continued. The Unmaker stirs again. He will smell the armor's breath. He will come. You must run until you are ready. Fight when you must, and learn what it means to be chosen. The hologram faded, and silence returned. Eli stood still, breathing hard. Selah touched his shoulder gently. The Unmaker, she repeated, voice hollow. I thought it was just a story we told to scare children. But it wasn't a story, not anymore. The signal had gone out, and something in the stars had answered it. Back on Selah's homeworld, her elders gathered in secret. Some wanted to hunt Eli down before he brought destruction. Others wanted to control him, use him as a weapon. But one old voice warned them all. You cannot leash fire and expect it not to burn. Far away, deep in space, something ancient opened a single eye. A great shadow stirred, bound by dust and silence for centuries. The armor's light had called out, and now the darkness knew where to look. As night fell across the canyon, Selah and Eli lit a small fire. They didn't speak much, but something had changed between them. Not just fear, not just trust, something else, unspoken. Like the bond between two people who've seen death, but keep walking anyway. The stars above twinkled like watching eyes, and somewhere in those stars, something wicked began to move. Asterisk. The wind changed, and Eli felt it before Selah did. A strange warmth moved across his skin, though the night was cold. He opened his eyes and saw the sky above them, turning silver for just a moment. Then a bright spark shot down from the stars and vanished behind the mountains. Selah sat up quickly, her hand already reaching for her blade. "That wasn't a star," she whispered. Eli didn't need to answer. He already knew the armor inside him had started to glow again, and the same voice whispered in his mind, "Go to where the light fell." They packed their things in silence. Neither asked where they were going. They just moved. Like two parts of the same thought. The journey took them through narrow paths and frozen valleys. Each step forward brought more tension in the air. The world around them felt like it was watching. They reached the place by morning. A crater had formed in the earth, and at the center lay a strange device, half buried in stone. It was old, very old but not broken. Eli stepped forward, and the armor responded with a low hum. The device opened like a blooming flower, and a soft light spread out from it. A message formed in the air, not sound, but feeling. Eli and Selah both felt it inside their minds. It wasn't words but memories. A city in flames, a sky full of black ships, and a beast with wings made of smoke. It walked through armies and crushed them without effort. Its voice shattered buildings. Its eyes turned metal to ash. Then a group of warriors stood together, all wearing the same armor Eli now carried. They glowed like stars, and they gave everything to stop the monster. In the end, they locked it away, not destroyed. Just sealed. But the seal was weak, and the memory ended with the warning. "It will rise again when the armor wakes." Eli staggered back, his hands shaking. "That's what we're up against," he said, voice almost gone. Selah looked pale, her eyes wide and wet. "I've heard that name whispered by the old ones," she said. "The Unmaker. It destroyed half our galaxy before it was stopped." Eli stared at his hands, the faint glow pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. "And now it's coming back." Selah stepped closer, placing her hand on his chest. "You're not alone," she said softly. "The armor chose you, but I'm not going anywhere." Before they could speak more, a sharp noise cracked through the air. 3 shadowed figures stepped out from the trees above the crater. All of them wore dark armor, eyes glowing red. Selah gasped. "Hunters!" The lead figure raised a hand, his voice deep and sharp. "Step away from the device," he ordered. Eli moved in front of Selah, and the armor formed across his arms instantly. "I don't think we will," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. The hunter laughed. "But it was cold and empty. You don't even know what you're carrying, do you?" Eli didn't answer. The hunter continued. "That armor is a key, and you just pointed it at the lock." With that, the hunters attacked, fast like shadows on fire. Eli raised a glowing shield just in time, blocking the first strike. Selah moved like a blade, her training sharper than ever. They fought together, back to back. Steel ran against energy, light clashed with darkness. But the hunters were stronger, older, smarter. Eli's heart pounded, not from fear, but from something inside the armor. A second heartbeat, deeper, louder. Then something new happened. His body moved faster than his thoughts. He spun and struck with energy he didn't know he had. The ground cracked, and one hunter flew back like a leaf in the wind. The other 2 paused, watching him carefully now. Selah shouted, "Eli, they're not normal. You can't beat them alone." "I'm not alone," he said. He looked at her, and the armor opened just slightly. It released a second layer, a thin ring of light that floated between them. Without thinking, Selah touched it, and the light wrapped around her hand. For a moment, the armor accepted her too. A shockwave burst out from them, sending the hunters flying. The world around them blurred with blue fire and energy. When it cleared, the hunters were gone, vanished like smoke. Eli dropped to his knees. The armor dimming again. Selah helped him up, both of them breathless. What was that? She asked. Eli shook his head slowly. I think the armor wants us both. Behind them, the device in the crater closed again. It had done its job. It had passed on the warning. Now the countdown had begun. From far above the planet, a ship, cloaked in shadows, moved slowly towards Zilaria. Inside it, something ancient stirred and whispered with a voice made of broken stars. The bearer has awakened, it said, and the end begins. The sky above Zilaria cracked like glass. A blinding flash lit up the clouds, turning night into day for just a second. Birds fell silent, animals scattered, and even the ground gave a small tremble. People in distant villages looked up and held their breath. They didn't know what it was, but something inside them whispered, run. Eli woke with a start, his body soaked in sweat. He hadn't been dreaming. The armor had shown him something again. He saw ships burning in the sky, cities crumbling, and a face with no eyes, just darkness. It spoke no words, but its presence made his heart feel like it would stop. Selah sat by the fire, sharpening her blade. She looked up quickly when Eli gasped awake. The vision again? She asked. He nodded, still catching his breath. It's getting stronger, he said. I think the Unmaker is getting closer. Selah didn't look surprised. She had already seen signs. Her communicator had picked up faint signals, strange movements from the outer rim. She didn't want to believe it, but now she had no choice. They moved. Quickly after that, the armor guided them to a place Selah had only heard of in whispers, a ruin hidden deep in the floating mountains. It was once a stronghold of the first bearers, the ones who wore the armor before time had a name. When they reached the cliffs, the air was thick and hard to breathe. Stone towers floated on invisible force fields, held by ancient energy. No paths, no stairs, just sky between platforms. Eli stepped forward, and the armor reacted at once. Glowing steps appeared in front of him, floating over the abyss. Selah took a shaky breath and followed him without a word. Inside the ancient tower, time seemed frozen. Dust didn't move, and light had no source. In the center stood a table made of glass and metal. On it lay a single object, a crown, shaped like fire and bone. Eli stepped closer, but Selah grabbed his arm. Wait, she said. That's not just decoration. He nodded, trusting her instinct. They circled the table, and suddenly the air changed. A figure appeared, tall, glowing, its voice echoing like thunder. You are late, it said. Eli blinked. Late? For what? The figure's face had no eyes, only light. For the test, it answered, and with that, the tower vanished. Eli found himself standing alone in a place that didn't exist. There was no ground, no sky, just a gray, endless space. Then hundreds of enemies appeared around him, warriors of shadow with blades of light. The armor locked in place, its heat rushing through him. It didn't ask what he wanted, it acted. Eli fought without thinking, moving like he had trained for years. His body moved faster than his thoughts, every attack perfect, every dodge exact. But they kept coming. One fell, 10 rose. His energy began to drop. His hands shook, his knees buckled. Then Selah appeared beside him. She wasn't wearing armor, but something around her shimmered. She looked at him and smiled. You don't fight alone anymore. Together, they cut through the waves. The test ended in a sudden flash, and the gray world shattered like glass. They stood once again in the real tower, breathless. The glowing figure nodded. You are the first to survive the trial of Bond. Eli stepped forward, still shaking. What was that? He asked. The past, the figure answered, and a warning. It pointed toward the crown on the table. Take it. Eli hesitated, but then reached out. The moment his fingers touched the crown, he saw fire, war, betrayal, and the fall of great cities. He saw the moment the Unmaker was sealed, and the reason why. Because one of the first bearers had betrayed the others, and the armor still remembered that pain. When Eli placed the crown in his pack, the tower began to fall apart. Not from damage, but from release. Its purpose was complete, and it was letting go. Outside, the sky was darker than before. A deep red shimmer spread across the clouds. Something had entered the atmosphere. Not just a ship, but a presence. A weight pressing down on the world like a hand made of fear. Scylla whispered without realizing. "It's here." Eli looked at her. "No," he said. "It's watching." From far above, beyond the clouds, a shape hovered silently. No lights, no engine. Just darkness floating in the air. Inside that ship, the Unmaker moved for the first time in 1,000 years. Its breath was fire, its heart was ice, and it smiled. The world had gone quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. Like the moment before a storm breaks the sky. Eli stood at the edge of the cliff, looking out at the glowing red clouds. His fingers twitched, the armor beneath his skin shifting slowly, like it was holding its breath. Scylla stood beside him, silent. She didn't ask if he was scared. She didn't need to. His eyes said everything. The Unmaker's presence was like smoke in their lungs. It hadn't landed yet, but it didn't need to. Its mind was already touching the world, spreading fear, doubt, and old memories that didn't belong to anyone still alive. Eli turned her, his voice quiet. "If I fall, you have to keep going." Scylla's jaw clenched, and she stepped close. "Say that again, and I'll push you off this cliff myself," she said. He smiled, just a little, for a moment. They were just two people again, not heroes, not bearers, just Eli and Scylla. But the moment didn't last. The sky cracked again, and a black streak ripped through the clouds. It landed far away, near the temple ruins, and the world began to shake. Eli dropped to one knee, grabbing his chest. The armor inside him twisted with sudden heat, but it wasn't pain, it was warning. Something had entered the world that shouldn't exist, something that broke rules, bent time, and whispered to metal. Scylla dropped beside him, grabbing his face in her hands. "Breathe," she said. "You're still you." Eli gasped. "I can feel it. It's calling to the armor." She shook her head. "Then don't answer." But it was too late. The armor glowed white-hot, and a beam of light burst from Eli's chest. It shot into the sky, straight toward the enemy ship. They both watched it rise, a perfect line of fire across the clouds. The Unmaker had seen them now. Suddenly, Eli's body collapsed, his eyes rolling back. The armor held him up like a puppet on strings. Scylla screamed his name and held him tight. "Don't you dare leave me," she cried. Inside his mind, Eli was falling through stars, through memories that weren't his. He saw the first bearer, Scylla's ancestor, standing in the same armor. He saw betrayal, blood, and the moment the armor was sealed in silence, he saw the Unmaker whispering to one of their own, turning them, twisting them, and then he saw something else. A glowing thread, thin, bright, and unbreakable. It connected him to something outside the memory. Someone. Scylla. He reached for it, and in the real world, his hand twitched. Scylla gasped. "Eli?" His fingers curled around hers, and the armor shifted again. But this time, it didn't cover only Eli. It moved toward Scylla, glowing softly like it had found something new. She felt warmth in her chest and heard a heartbeat that wasn't hers. The armor formed a link between them. Two pulses, two thoughts, one purpose. When Eli opened his eyes, they glowed, but not white, not like before. This time, they glowed gold. He stood, and Scylla stood with him. Neither of them spoke, but they didn't need to. The armor had chosen them both. They traveled together to the temple ruins. The place was broken, scorched by the crash. At the center stood a shadow with no clear shape. It moved like smoke, but heavier than stone. The Unmaker had not come to speak. It came to break. The ground turned black beneath it, and even the light seemed afraid to stay near. Eli stepped forward, the armor lighting with power. Scylla followed, her blade glowing with the same energy. The Unmaker did not attack, not yet. Instead, it looked at them, or maybe it looked through them. "You are nothing," it said, its voice like cracking stone. Eli spoke back, voice steady. Then you shouldn't be afraid of nothing. The Unmaker raised a hand, and the world exploded into motion. Rocks flew, lightning cracked. Wind screamed like a living beast. Eli raised his arms, and a golden shield covered them both. Selah pushed forward, her weapon cutting through the air like fire. Together they moved as one, the armor guiding Eli's strength. Selah's spirit sharpening every step. For the first time, the Unmaker stepped back. Even darkness was surprised. The battle had begun. Not a war of armies, but of hearts, of will, and as long as they stood together, the world still had hope. The world held its breath. Clouds above the battlefield stopped moving, frozen like painted skies. Time seemed slower now, like the planet itself feared what was coming next. Eli and Selah stood side by side, the golden light of the armor flowing between them like a river of stars. Their shadows stretched long across the cracked earth, facing the creature that had no true shape. The Unmaker towered above them, larger than mountains. Its body was made of broken memories and stolen thoughts. Its voice didn't come from its mouth, it came from inside the heart. You are weak, it said. You are borrowed strength. Nothing more. But Eli didn't answer with words. He raised his hands, and the armor responded with a sound like thunder. The earth beneath his feet lit up with ancient symbols, the same ones from the temple, from Selah's home, from the vision, from the trial. Everything had led to this moment. Selah moved beside him, her sword now coated in living light. The armor had accepted her fully now, not just as a helper, but as a bearer. She saw flashes of the past with every step, warriors who came before her, some who failed, some who gave everything, and now it was their turn. The Unmaker charged, silent and fast. The air cracked around its body as it came down like a falling world. Eli leapt forward, the armor shielding him like a second skin. Selah followed, her blade cutting through the shadow. They fought in light and darkness. Every blow shook the ground, every movement left trails in the air. The Unmaker roared, its voice tearing trees from the soil. But Eli held firm, and Selah did not fall. The armor shifted again. It didn't just protect, it began to burn. Golden flames spread from Eli's chest, wrapping both of them in light. The Unmaker paused, for the first time confused. You were never meant to hold this power. It hissed. You are not one of them. Eli's voice was calm. I'm human, he said. And maybe that's why I was chosen. The flames grew, not hot but pure. Memories passed between him and Selah like lightning. Every laugh, every step, every fight, every time she stood beside him. The bond was not just armor, not just fate, it was love. Selah whispered his name, and the armor answered. It shifted one last time, forming wings of light, not to escape, but to strike. Eli and Selah flew together into the sky. The Unmaker rose to meet them, screaming in 1,000 voices, but it was too late. The armor unleashed its final form. The light exploded not as a weapon, but as a memory too strong to erase. The explosion reached the stars. The sky burned white for a second, then went dark. Silence followed, deep and endless. When Eli opened his eyes, the battlefield was gone. He stood on soft grass, under a clear blue sky. Selah stood across from him, the armor gone, her eyes filled with quiet tears. It's over, she said. He nodded. But we're still here. People from nearby villages began to arrive slowly. They had seen the light, felt the power. They didn't run. They knelt. For the first time, the armor had not chosen bloodline, or title, or rank. It had chosen bond, courage, and heart. Selah stepped forward, took Eli's hand. No more temples, no more trials. Just peace, far above, where no one could reach. The shattered pieces of the Unmaker drifted through space, silent and powerless. The old danger was gone, but the memory remained, and the legend was born, not just of the armor, but of the girl who shared its power, and the human it had never meant to choose, but was glad it did.